right, today we're going to start our lecture on the endocrine system. So we're going to take a couple of weeks and do this whole unit where we're going to talk about all the glands of the endocrine systems and the different functions of the endocrine system. You guys have covered systems of the body up until this point in other grades. So we've done respiratory system, circulatory system, digestive system, nervous system, skeletal system. So this is just another system of the body that probably many of us don't know very much about. So I'm going to explain to you what its jobs are, and then we'll go over its different parts today. So the endocrine system regulates body activities by producing these chemical messengers. We'll talk more about those in a minute. Inside of structures called glands. Okay. So in your body, there are two types of glands actually, and not all glands in your body are endocrine glands. Because you have two types of glands. The first type of gland that I want to talk about is the one that's actually not part of your endocrine system. I'm just going to give you a few examples of them, and then we aren't really going to talk about them anymore in this unit. But I did want you to be aware that there's more than one type of gland. So exocrine glands, that's the name for glands that are not part of your endocrine system, okay? And these exocrine glands are often called duct glands. And they have ducts because they secrete their products directly onto the surface of your body tissues. And I'm going to give you a few examples of those in just a minute. But these are not the type of gland found in the endocrine system. So examples of exocrine glands would be, we talked about them in the last chapter, but your salivary glands. If you think about how they work, they secrete saliva directly onto the tissues in your mouth. So they're just going to put them right out there. Now, the opposite of is what an endocrine gland does. An endocrine gland is going to secrete things into your bloodstream, where they're then delivered to a body tissue. So the exocrine glands are going to secrete things directly onto the tissue they have an effect on. Another example of this would be a sweat gland, which secretes sweat directly onto your skin, or a tear duct, which when you cry, right, your tear ducts secrete tears directly onto the skin of your face or into your eyes. And so that's going to be another example of one that delivers it directly to the tissue surface. Talking about endocrine glands, so endocrine glands, or what we would call ductless glands, these glands are also going to produce chemicals, but they secrete them into the bloodstream instead of directly onto the surface of the tissue. And then they travel through the bloodstream to other parts of the body. These are the types of glands that make up the endocrine system. When a chemical is produced in one part of the body, but it's used in another part of the body, we call that chemical a hormone. So you may hear that there are hormones in your body, and all that means is that those chemicals are being produced in one area, for example, the brain, and they're having an effect on another area, for example, your nerves. Okay, so farther away from your brain, a chemical that's produced in your brain can affect nerves in your foot or in your digestive system, or it can affect muscles, or it could affect an organ. So any hormone that's produced in one place and then travels to another place is, we're going to call that chemical a hormone. All right, I'd like you to find the diagram on the next page. Looks like this. I'm going to see how much of this I can get in one frame. So structure A is going to be right here. Okay, it's that little, it's on the bottom of the brain. And the way I describe this is if you could sort of touch your nose, okay? Touch the bridge of your nose, right at the top of your nose. And imagine that you can now touch the underside of your brain. Ew, gross, I know. But if you could, you'd be able to touch this gland right here. And that gland right there is what we would call your pituitary gland. Right underneath this, we have another gland that we would call your pineal gland. And then across from that, I want to go ahead and look at F. So F is actually a part of your brain. If we come down here to F, we want to label this the hypothalamus. Now, the hypothalamus is not an endocrine gland in itself, but it produces some things that have an effect on endocrine glands. So we usually count it as part of the endocrine system, even though it's technically a part of your brain. It gets to count in both sections. All right, now we're going to go back up to C. If you see C, C is pointing to these little dots that are right here. And there are 4 of these dots. Those are what we call your parathyroid glands, and that will make more sense in just a second. But they're called your parathyroid glands. And then the thing that they're attached to, this large, almost like this large symmetrical structure here, that's called your thyroid gland. And so we're going to label G as your thyroid gland. So the parathyroid glands are found on your thyroid. And that actually makes sense because this root here, parathyroid, actually means around. So your parathyroid glands are part of your, are attached to your thyroid. And then G is going to be the thyroid gland. All right, right here you can see D is kind of what I would like to describe as a butterfly-shaped structure. This is a neat little organ because this is the only organ that is larger in children than it is in adults. So your thymus does its primary function for you while you're growing. So right now, your thymus is more active than the adults, okay? Your thymus actually shrinks and goes away as you get older, which is pretty cool. It's the only organ that doesn't grow. So your thymus is going to be structure D. So the butterfly-shaped one is called the thymus. Then we have E. E is actually pointing to 2 structures. So these are your kidneys right here. But E is not pointing to your kidneys. E is pointing to these 2 little structures that are sitting on top of your kidneys. And those are your adrenal glands. You have 2 of them, 1 on each kidney. And then last but not least, H over here is the pancreas. Pancreas, kind of a weird word, the way it's spelled. I always think of it as pancreas to remember how to spell it. So your pancreas. All right, that's it for today's lecture. We'll watch the next one here pretty soon that's going to walk you through the function of each gland in the endocrine system.